Let me be direct. When she says no to sex, you are being tested, not by her, but by your own discipline. Most men fail that test. They panic, they pressure, they punish. They look for validation somewhere else. And then they wonder why attraction disappears. There are 5 destructive mistakes men make when a woman withholds intimacy, and none of them restore desire. In fact, they do the opposite. They expose insecurity. They collapse trust. They turn a strong man into a reactive one. If you've ever felt your pride flare up when she denied you, this is the moment that defines your value. I'm going to break down exactly where men go wrong, and how not to become one of them. Let's slow this down for a second. When she says no, you think the problem is sex. It's not. For most men, sex isn't just physical release. It's validation. It's proof that you're desired, chosen, wanted. So when she pulls back, whether she used to sleep with you and stopped, or never gave you access in the first place, something deeper gets triggered. It feels like rejection. And rejection doesn't just bruise your ego. It activates the same pain circuitry in your brain as physical injury. In 2003, researchers Naomi Eisenberger and Matthew Lieberman at UCLA found that social rejection lights up the anterior cingulate cortex, the same region involved in processing physical pain. Your brain literally registers, "She doesn't want me," in a similar way to, "I've been hurt." That's why your reaction feels intense, disproportionate, personal. Because to you, it is personal. But here's where most men lose control. When your identity feels threatened, your nervous system shifts into defense mode. You either attack, withdraw, or look for validation somewhere else. Attack might look like anger, pressure, sarcasm. Withdraw might look like emotional coldness or silent resentment. Seeking validation might look like texting other women just to prove you still have it. None of these reactions are random. They're protection mechanisms. Your mind is trying to restore your sense of status, your sense of masculinity, your sense of power. But when you react from wounded pride instead of grounded strength, you don't restore power. You expose insecurity. And that's where most men make their first fatal mistake. Number 1. Sleeping around with other women. This is the most instinctive reaction. If she's not giving it to me, I'll find someone who will. On the surface, it feels logical. You have needs. You feel deprived. You convince yourself this is about balance. But it's not about balance. It's about impulse. When you feel rejected, your brain craves immediate relief. Dopamine spikes when you flirt, when another woman responds, when you feel wanted again. It temporarily numbs the sting of her no. Behavioral psychology calls this immediate reinforcement, short-term reward that soothes discomfort. The problem? Immediate gratification almost always sabotages long-term gain. You think you're restoring your power. But what you're actually doing is signaling something much louder. I cannot regulate myself. And women are extremely sensitive to emotional regulation. If she finds out, and let's be honest, women are far more perceptive than men give them credit for, trust collapses instantly. Not just because you touched someone else, but because you proved that the moment things became uncomfortable, you outsourced your discipline. And once trust collapses, attraction follows. You lose moral authority. You lose credibility. You lose the right to speak about loyalty or commitment ever again. Even if she never finds out, something shifts inside you. You know you acted from wounded pride. You know it wasn't strength. It was reaction. That energy leaks. You start justifying yourself. You start becoming defensive. You start subtly resenting her even more, because now your behavior needs to be rationalized. And here's the deeper truth most men don't want to hear. If you cannot handle temporary sexual frustration without scrambling for external validation, you are not operating from masculine stability. You are operating from need. And need is never attractive. You don't win your power back by acting powerless. You either master your impulses or your impulses master you. And once she senses you're being ruled by them, she will never fully respect you again. Now let's talk about the second mistake. And this one destroys attraction even faster. Number 2, threatening to break up. If you're not going to sleep with me, maybe we shouldn't be together. Some men say it calmly. Some say it in frustration. Some disguise it as being honest about their needs. But let's call it what it is. It's pressure. And pressure kills desire. The moment you attach the survival of the relationship to sexual compliance, you turn intimacy into a transaction. You're no longer a man choosing her. You're a man negotiating access. Social exchange theory, introduced by sociologist Peter Blau in 1964, explains that when relationships start to feel like cost-benefit calculations, emotional connection weakens. Attraction thrives in voluntary choice, not in forced exchange. The second she feels that sex is now the price she has to pay to keep you, something inside her shuts down. Desire must be freely given to feel safe. When you threaten to leave, you think you're regaining leverage. In reality, you're revealing insecurity. A grounded man can state his needs without weaponizing them. An unstable man uses departure as intimidation, and women can tell the difference instantly. In her mind, she begins categorizing you. There's the man with a stable masculine frame, steady, composed, capable of self-control. And then there's the pressure-driven male who panics when his desires aren't met. The moment you lean into coercion, you move yourself into the second category. And once that shift happens, attraction doesn't just decrease, respect erodes. She starts thinking, so that's what this was about. Access, not connection. You go from desirable to transactional. From a man she wanted to choose to a man who's bargaining. And here's the irony. Even if she gives in after the threat, you still lose. Because now the intimacy is contaminated. It's no longer driven by desire. It's driven by fear of losing you. And deep down, she will never forget that. The moment you use sex as leverage, you lose leverage. Strong men don't threaten departure to extract compliance. They evaluate, decide, and act with clarity. There is no emotional blackmail in stability. If you truly cannot accept a relationship without sex, you are free to leave. But if you weaponize leaving to manipulate her into surrender, you don't look strong. You look desperate. And desperation is the fastest way to kill attraction. Now let's move to the third mistake. And this one is more subtle, but just as destructive. Number 3, withdrawing generosity and warmth. This one is quieter. You don't threaten. You don't cheat. You just change. You stop being attentive. You stop being affectionate. You stop doing the little things you used to do. And in your mind, it feels justified. If she's not giving me what I want, why should I keep giving her what she wants? But what you don't realize is that the message she receives is devastating. It tells her that your kindness was conditional, that your warmth had a price tag, that every dinner, every compliment, every thoughtful gesture was an investment, and the return you expected was sex. Psychologists Harry Rice and Philip Clark have written extensively about perceived partner responsiveness, the idea that trust and intimacy grow when someone feels genuinely cared for, not strategically accommodated. The moment a partner senses that your responsiveness was self-serving, trust drops. Not slowly, immediately, because now she questions your authenticity. She starts replaying everything in her mind. Was he ever truly present? Did he actually care about me? Or was he just positioning himself? And once a woman feels like she was being managed instead of loved, attraction begins to erode. You might think withdrawing affection gives you control. It doesn't. It exposes that you were operating from expectation, not generosity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. If your energy toward her drastically shifts the moment sex is removed, then sex was never just one part of the connection for you. It was the core transaction. Women are extremely sensitive to emotional congruence. They notice when your tone changes, when your patience shortens, when your effort drops, and they interpret it as, he was never here for me. He was here for access. That realization is hard to undo. Conditional kindness is just manipulation in disguise. And once she feels manipulated, she doesn't lean closer. She pulls back. Now let's talk about the fourth mistake, the one that feels harmless, but can quietly sabotage everything. Number 4, talking to your friends about it. When you feel rejected, you want validation. You want someone to tell you you're right, that she's unreasonable, that you deserve better. So you go to your group chat, your boys, the guys who've known you for years, and they respond exactly how you expect. Man, that's crazy. She's playing games. Find someone else. It feels good in the moment. But here's what's really happening. You're outsourcing your emotional regulation. Instead of handling the tension directly with her, you're diffusing it into your social circle. And in male peer culture, especially around masculinity and sexual access, there's subtle status anxiety. No man wants to be seen as the guy who can't get it. So now it's not just about you and her. It's about your reputation. That pressure distorts your judgment. And here's the risk most men underestimate. Not every friend protects your relationship. Some talk, some exaggerate, some compete. Some might even try their own luck if they sense weakness. Private tension becomes public narrative. And once intimacy is discussed outside the relationship without consent, trust fractures. Even if she never hears about it, you've already shifted your loyalty. Mature men understand discretion. If you truly need guidance, seek professional counsel, a therapist, a coach, someone trained to help you navigate dynamics without ego, gossip, or competition. Maturity is not venting. Maturity is containment. When you keep the matter between you and her, you preserve dignity, yours and hers. Now let's look at the fifth mistake. This one is subtle, and many men don't even realize they're making it. Number 5, not keeping an open mind. When she says no, most men stop listening right there. All they hear is rejection. But what they don't hear is the reason behind it. Sometimes it's religion. Sometimes it's moral boundaries. Sometimes it's emotional safety. And sometimes it has nothing to do with you at all. But if you're locked into your wounded pride, you won't investigate. You'll interpret. And interpretation without curiosity almost always turns into resentment. From an evolutionary psychology perspective, long-term mate selection has always involved risk management. Women, biologically and socially, have historically carried greater consequences for sexual choices. That wiring doesn't disappear just because we live in a modern world. Deliberation is not manipulation. Sometimes it's strategy. In 2012, sociologist Sharon Sassler and her colleagues found that the timing of sexual involvement was linked to relationship quality and stability. Couples who delayed sexual involvement often reported stronger communication and longer-term satisfaction. That doesn't mean waiting guarantees success, but it does suggest something important. Delayed access can signal long-term orientation. When a woman doesn't give herself easily, it may not be about control. It may be about filtering. And here's the reframe most men resist. The woman who makes you wait may be the woman who won't betray you. If she doesn't bend under pressure, yours or anyone else's, that's not weakness. That's boundaries. But if you refuse to consider her framework, if you reduce everything to she's denying me, you miss the bigger picture. You miss her values, her fears, her standards, and you turn what could have been insight into ego warfare. Not keeping an open mind doesn't just block understanding. It blocks connection. Now that we've dismantled the 5 mistakes, let's talk about what you should actually do instead. So what do you do instead? First, you sit down and have the conversation most men avoid. Not a confrontation, not an interrogation, a conversation. You ask, and then you listen. Not to respond, not to argue, but to understand. When a woman feels heard without pressure, something shifts in her nervous system. Defensiveness softens, emotional safety increases, and emotional safety always precedes physical safety. If she believes you only value her body, she will guard it. If she believes you value her as a person, she relaxes. Empathy is not weakness. It is strategy. Research in relationship psychology consistently shows that perceived understanding strengthens bonding and trust. When someone feels emotionally validated, their resistance lowers because they don't feel threatened. But listening alone isn't enough. You also need to communicate what intimacy means to you. And here's where many men struggle, because they equate intimacy exclusively with intercourse. Intimacy has layers: touch, affection, closeness, shared vulnerability, time spent in each other's presence. If intercourse is off the table for now, is she willing to meet you somewhere else on that spectrum? Cuddling, sleeping next to each other, physical closeness without escalation. You're not demanding, you're negotiating connection. There's a difference. Pressure says, give me what I want. Maturity says, let's find a middle ground that respects both of us. When she sees that you're not trying to override her boundaries, but understand them, you move from adversary to ally. And allies create safety. Once safety is present, desire has space to breathe. But here's the part that requires real strength. After the conversation, after the empathy, after the negotiation, you have to decide. And that's what we're going to talk about next. After you've listened, after you've explained your needs, after you've tried to find middle ground, you are left with one responsibility: decision, not emotional swinging, not passive resentment, not staying while secretly punishing her. Decision. You either choose to stay, faithfully, knowing what the dynamic is, or you choose to leave, respectfully, without turning her into the villain. This is where identity comes in. Because masculinity is not proven through conquest, it is proven through integrity. An identity-based decision means this: you act in alignment with who you say you are. If you tell her, I can accept this, I want to build something long-term, then you stay, and you don't complain every 2 weeks about what you agreed to. If you tell her, I know myself, I cannot be in a relationship without sexual intimacy, then you leave. Calmly, clearly, without pressure, without threat. No emotional blackmail. No last-minute ultimatums. Just clarity. Integrity builds stability, and stability builds respect, even when it leads to separation. A decisive man is predictable in his values, and predictability creates safety, even in departure. If you stay, stay fully. If you walk away cleanly. But do not linger in half-commitment, because half-commitment is where resentment grows, and resentment will destroy what rejection never could. A decisive man earns respect, even when he walks away. Let's bring this back to the truth most men don't want to face. When she's not giving you sex, the real issue isn't sex. It's how you handle power, how you handle ego, how you handle control. You've seen the 5 mistakes: sleeping around to soothe your pride, threatening to leave to force compliance, withdrawing warmth to punish, running to your friends for validation, refusing to understand her reasons. None of these restore attraction. They destroy respect. And once respect erodes, desire doesn't recover easily. Here's what separates grounded men from reactive ones. Grounded men don't panic when they don't get immediate gratification. They observe. They communicate. They decide. Your strength is not proven by how quickly you can access her body. It's proven by how steady you remain when access is denied. You can't force desire, but you can absolutely destroy it. And most men destroy it through impatience, ego, and emotional instability. If this conversation challenged you, good. It was meant to. Subscribe if you want to understand women at the level of psychology, not fantasy. Comment below. Which mistake have you made before? And share this with a man who's about to sabotage something valuable because his pride is louder than his discipline. Control your reactions. That's where your real power lives.